Hello everyone, it's Big Yan here, back with another restoration story. A local fan reached out after watching our videos and told us about a classic car they've had sitting in the family garage. A vintage, old Shanghai. It's been collecting dust for over 20 years, and they've been dreaming of seeing it back in action. The timing couldn't have been better, so we're taking on the challenge to bring this iconic car back to life. The first thing we noticed was how well-preserved the interior is. It still has the original fabric seats, which are surprisingly intact. No rips, no major damage. That's a rare find for a car this old. It's like a time capsule. But while the seats may be pristine, the engine and exterior are another story entirely. So we rolled up our sleeves and got to work. Step 1, checking the basics. We inspected the engine oil, and as expected, it was pitch black. That's what happens when a car sits unused for 2 decades. Out with the old, in with the new. After replacing the oil, we focused on the tires, which had lost all pressure. A quick air refill, and they were good to go. Then we hooked up a fresh battery to see if we could get the engine to crank. It's always a gamble with cars this old, but the moment of truth came, and the engine turned over. It's a small victory, but a big step forward. Anyone who's worked on classic cars knows that time is both a friend and an enemy. While it protects some parts, it can wreak havoc on others. The cylinders, for example, lose lubrication, making it harder for the engine to start. But as the saying goes, if it can crank, it can run. That gave us hope, so we moved on to the next step. We turned our attention to the spark plugs, which were, unsurprisingly, ancient. They looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. Replacing them was a no-brainer, and the upgrade improved both compression and cylinder sealing, making it much easier to start the engine. While we were at it, we cleaned the ignition points and checked the fuel system. Fun fact, the original engine was a 6-cylinder with dual carburetors, but somewhere along the way, the previous owner swapped in a carburetor from another model. It's always fascinating to see the modifications people make to keep these classics running. The starter motor, however, was struggling. It didn't have enough power to fire up the engine, so we took it out for a thorough inspection. Sure enough, it needed some professional care. We handed it over to an expert, and once it was reinstalled, we gave it a boost with a higher current. When we turned the key this time, the engine roared to life. Hearing that sound after so many years of silence was pure magic. There's something truly satisfying about reviving a piece of history. With the engine humming along, we couldn't resist giving the car a quick test to see if it could still move. And yes, it's alive. The wheels turned, and for a brief moment, it felt like stepping back in time. But let's be honest, this is just the beginning. Restoring this car to its original glory will take a lot more work. The exterior, in particular, needs serious attention. The paint is faded, and the body has its fair share of dings and scratches. Next, we'll dismantle the car piece by piece to give it a complete overhaul. For those who don't know, the old Shanghai was once the pride of Chinese streets. Back in the day, riding in one of these cars was a symbol of status. If you had a bag of White Rabbit candy, a cold Jianlibao soda, and a seat in an old Shanghai, you were living the dream. Restoring this car is about more than just mechanics. It's about bringing a piece of that history back to life. Today's work has been intense, and there's still so much to do. From the bodywork to the finer details, every step will bring us closer to making this car shine like new again. If you're as excited as we Restoring this car has been an incredible journey so far. Just getting the 4 doors disassembled took hours of effort. After sitting idle for so long, the screws were completely rusted. Some seemed impossible to remove. It took every bit of patience, creativity, and elbow grease to get them out. But when I think about what this car represents, a piece of our shared history, it all feels worthwhile. Restoring a car like this isn't just about fixing a vehicle. It's about bringing a forgotten legacy back to life. Labor isn't cheap, especially when it comes to restoration projects. It takes a lot of time and attention to detail, but this car deserves it. The old Shanghai isn't just any car. It's a symbol of pride, craftsmanship, and resilience. Seeing the original fabric seats in such incredible condition was like finding buried treasure. They're still intact, with no rips or major damage, a testament to the quality of its design. Uncovering details like this during the process reminds me why I love working on classics. Every little victory gives me the energy to push forward. This car has a storied history. Back in the day, the old Shanghai wasn't just a means of transportation. It was a status symbol. Owning one of these was a sign that you'd made it. It was luxurious, iconic, and built with care. Even government officials use these cars as official vehicles, cementing their place in history. Today, however, many people, especially younger generations, don't know the significance of this model. Its legacy has faded into the background. These cars are rare now, and even if you have the money, finding one in good condition is nearly impossible. But that's what makes this restoration so special. It's not just about repairing a car, it's about preserving a piece of history. For me, as a classic car enthusiast, this is more than a project. It's a mission to keep the memory of these vehicles alive. The old Shanghai represents a chapter in the story of automotive innovation, a time when craftsmanship and national pride were intertwined. To do this restoration justice, I've been taking the car apart piece by piece, examining every detail. Even the front and rear windows had to be removed. Let me tell you, that was one of the most stressful tasks so far. Those original windows are nearly impossible to replace, so every move had to be calculated and precise. But when I finally got them out safely, it felt like a major accomplishment. Now I'm diving into the interior, cleaning it thoroughly to prepare it for the next phase. The goal isn't just to make the car run again, it's to restore it to its original glory. Every detail matters, from the shine of the body to the stitching on the seats. It's about recreating the spirit of the old Shanghai and showing how much these cars meant to the people who owned and admired them. For enthusiasts like me, it's also about sharing the joy and pride that comes with keeping a piece of the past alive. The road ahead is still long. Sanding down the body, fixing dents, and applying fresh paint are just a few of the next steps. Each task brings the car closer to looking and feeling like it did the day it rolled out of the factory. Every bolt tightened, every piece polished. It all builds toward the moment when this car will shine again, just as it once did. Restoring a classic like this is more than a technical challenge. It's an emotional journey. It's about honoring the history, craftsmanship, and culture behind the car. It's also about the people who built it, drove it, and cherished it. These cars were a source of pride and inspiration, and bringing one back to life feels like reviving a part of that story. For everyone following along, thank you for being part of this journey. Restoring this car feels like a true labor of love. Just sanding down the four doors took an entire day. The car has been sitting idle for so long that everything, down to the screws, is rusted solid. It's a meticulous and time-consuming process, but as the saying goes, if you stick with it, you'll see results. My goal is to help this old Shanghai shine again, bringing it back to its best possible condition. Sanding alone is a tough job, but it's worth it. Right now, we're focusing on the primer coat to protect the car from corrosion and lay the groundwork for its final finish. The results so far? Nothing short of amazing. Every detail, every step brings us closer to a transformation that feels like art in motion. For this project, we've taken the entire car apart, down to the inner panels. Without access to sandblasting equipment, we're relying entirely on manual labor, grinding and sanding every inch of the surface by hand. It's a bit like plastic surgery for a car. We're uncovering its original form, piece by piece. The car's first paint job was a classic light blue, and you can still see glimpses of that under the worn surface. It's a reminder of the timeless beauty this car once had, and it motivates me to push forward. To go the extra mile, I decided to remove the engine as well. If we're going to restore it, we might as well do it right. The old layers of grime and rust have been painstakingly scraped away. Once cleaned, it's time to give the engine a fresh facial treatment to restore its shine and performance. Seeing the engine hanging in the air during removal brought back a vivid memory. It reminded me of hanging smoked meats during the holidays, a strange but oddly fitting comparison. The first step was to drain the water and take out the radiator. Even the old screws needed a spray of lubricant to get them loose. This kind of work might seem straightforward, but with a car this old, you never know what's going to work and what isn't. For instance, the alternator. Does it even still function? We'll find out soon enough. Every piece, from the water hoses to the screws, will need replacing. Modern cars have their advantages, but there's something incredibly rewarding about bringing a classic like this back to life. The work ahead is still daunting. Once the sanding and primer are finished, we'll move on to polishing the body and applying fresh paint. Every step requires patience, precision, and a commitment to excellence. Restoring this old Shanghai isn't just about making it roadworthy. It's about preserving its history and legacy. This car represents a time when craftsmanship mattered, and bringing it back to life feels like honoring that tradition. For those of you following along, thank you for your support. It's your encouragement that keeps me motivated to tackle the tough parts of this journey. There's still a lot to do, but I promise the final result will be worth it. Together, we'll see this old Shanghai restored to its former glory, a piece of history brought back to life. Stay tuned for the next chapter. I can't wait to share more of this incredible transformation with you. Restoring this car continues to reveal just how unique its engineering truly is. Take the exhaust pipe, for instance. It took me what felt like 2 meals worth of effort just to remove it. This might be the first time it's been detached in over 4 decades in the starter motor. That's probably only been serviced once before. Replacement parts for this old Shanghai are incredibly rare, so if anyone has original components, let me know. I'm more than willing to pay top dollar. To tackle something as intricate as this engine, I had to call in the big guns. My mentor, who's been fixing cars for over 40 years. His expertise shines through on a project like this. Without a proper lift, we had to get creative, using a forklift to carefully lower the engine. For an engine this old, the process is anything but simple. It's built with an impressive level of craftsmanship, a testament to the early days of domestic car manufacturing. This engine, with its 2.2-liter, 6-cylinder design, was ahead of its time. It delivers up to 90 horsepower and originally ran on 70-octane gasoline, which makes me wonder how it would perform with today's 92-octane fuel. Despite its age, it was one of the finest engines produced domestically back in the day, capable of solid performance and reliable fuel efficiency for its time. Every bolt and component in the engine bay shows its years. Most of them are rusted and worn, so they'll all need replacing. Cleaning out the engine and preparing it for restoration is a delicate process. It's like peeling back layers of history. Once everything is removed, including the smaller components in the engine bay, we'll clean and polish every part to ensure it's as close to the original condition as possible. The restoration process is nothing short of a labor of love. After cleaning the engine, we move on to the bodywork. This phase involves leveling out imperfections and preparing the surface for paint. It's an incredibly technical and meticulous task, requiring both skill and patience. Even though I'm still learning, I'm proud of the progress so far. Every step gets us closer to bringing this car back to life. Restoring a car is a lot like putting makeup on. It starts with cleaning the surface, hydrating it, and prepping it before you add the finishing touches. For this car, the preparation alone has taken several days, from sanding to applying primer and leveling compounds. Each step lays the foundation for the final coat of paint, ensuring the finish will be as smooth and flawless as possible. While the weather is still cooperative, we're working quickly to complete the sanding and prep work before moving on to painting. Once that's done, we'll clean everything again to ensure a perfect finish. The original floor mats and other interior components are still intact, which is a rare find. These original features add so much to the car's character, and preserving them is a top priority. Restoring this car is more than just a technical project. It's a tribute to the craftsmanship of a bygone era. Cars like this were built with pride, and every detail tells a story. Original materials like the trim and flooring are almost impossible to find now, making them all the more valuable to preserve. Keeping these elements intact ensures the authenticity and historical value of this classic vehicle. There's still a long road ahead, but every small victory makes the journey worthwhile. From uncovering hidden gems in the design to breathing new life into the engine, this restoration is about more than just mechanics. It's about honoring history. If you're enjoying following along, let me know in the comments. Your support keeps me motivated as we continue bringing this old Shanghai back to its former glory. Restoring this old Shanghai has been nothing short of an incredible journey. Even choosing the paint color sparked a lot of debate. After carefully considering all options, we decided on a classic black, a timeless choice that highlights the car's vintage elegance while preserving its historical charm. No matter the color, this car holds a special place in my heart as one of the most beautiful classics ever made. As the paint dried, the interior revealed its secrets. Stripping it down showed just how much this car has endured over the years. While some parts were worn and weathered, many original details remained intact. With the paint job complete, we carefully moved the car into the workshop to install the engine. Before reinstalling, we replaced all the engine oil and transmission fluid, ensuring the car runs as smoothly as it looks. The engine, now fully cleaned and restored, gleams with a brilliance that's hard to ignore. Seeing it back in place was a moment of triumph, proof that all the effort was worth it. The next stage involved reassembling the body, starting with the front and rear windshields. While it might seem simple, installing glass on a classic car is anything but. You have to handle each piece with extreme care, as breaking it would mean a near impossible hunt for a replacement. Having experienced this with another vintage car, a Mercedes, I know firsthand the frustration of working with delicate, irreplaceable components. Every step demands patience, precision, and a steady hand. One of the more surprising discoveries during this restoration was the seats. After a thorough cleaning, I realized that while the front and rear seats appeared original, they didn't quite match. The front seat was likely a single-piece bench in its original form, but had been replaced with split seats later on. Regardless, both sets retained the classic look and feel of the era, adding authenticity to the restoration. As for the floor mats, though they were heavily worn, their comfort and historical value made them worth preserving. A little cleaning brought them back to life, proving the mantra of restoration: keep it original whenever possible. The interior of this old Shanghai speaks to a simpler time. The materials are straightforward yet solid, true craftsmanship that's hard to find in modern cars. Every detail, from the stitching on the seats to the alignment of the panels, reflects the dedication that went into building vehicles in that era. While restoring the exterior, we also paid close attention to the taillights and electrical systems. Even though some components, like the fuses, were outdated, we found ways to get everything working again, ensuring the car's functionality matched its aesthetics. This car represents more than just a mode of transportation. It's a piece of history. It's a product of a time when automotive manufacturing was finding its footing, and every part tells a story. Shanghai Automotive, the company behind this car, laid the foundation for China's car industry. Over the decades, it evolved into a global powerhouse, eventually launching the Rowe brand and earning a place among the world's top automotive groups. Restoring this old Shanghai feels like honoring that legacy and reconnecting with the roots of an industry that has come so far. Restoration isn't just about technical work. It's about breathing life into something with a story, a soul. Every bolt tightened, every panel polished, and every seat cleaned brings this car closer to its former glory. It's a labor of love, requiring immense effort and care, but the results are worth it. The satisfaction of seeing this classic car come back to life is unmatched. For everyone following